day. Okay, good morning.
Morning.
This morning I'm going to talk about something that is very relevant to each and every one of our lives, and something that each and every one of us deal with, and that is temptation. Temptation is kind of a funny thing. It's something that when we give into, the results are often enjoyable. It's quite fun, and we reap the benefits of and the rewards, so to speak, when we give in. I'm reminded of a time when I was very tempted to buy this car back in the 90s. It was probably my second year in college, and I drove by this car lot every day, and it just kind of called out to me, new car would be so great. And I kept kind of avoiding it, but I'd go in every once in a while and just kind of drive the lot, check things out. And eventually I just got to that point where I just caved. And one night I drove down there and I said, I'm just going to do it. And without really much research, dove in, bought myself it was just a couple years old, but it was much newer than what I had. And I traded in my old car. And it was probably one of the most foolish decisions I ever made. I caved to the temptation, and I traded in a car that was reliable, that was really not in bad shape. It had a lot of work done before I purchased it, and I traded it in for something that was newer, that didn't run as well, and that I had continual problems with. And in hindsight, and also I ended up upside down with it as far as what I owed. And in hindsight, I regretted that decision because I gave in to that temptation to buy something that I felt would give me a better image and better status as far as the appearance of driving that new fancy car and what people might think of it. But temptation is one of many issues that the Bible speaks so relevant. The Bible is relevant to our lives, which I love. And so I'm going to do a couple things here this morning. I want to first look at what temptation is. I want to take a look at a couple different Bible characters that dealt with temptation, very similar temptation, and chose quite differently, chose different opposite ends of how to handle that, and then just talk about some of the pitfalls and the hope that we can have through temptation. Temptation, as far as the English dictionary defines it, is to attempt to persuade to do wrong as by promising pleasure or gain. Biblically, we find temptation sort of defined. One definition is in James 1:14. It says, "But each one is tempted when by his own evil desire he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death." Very familiar passage to all of us. But in reading and kind of looking at different things about temptation, I came across Dietrich Bonhoeffer's treatise on temptation. An amazing piece of work of literature. It's about 45 pages long, but this is how he explains temptation. And it's not too long, but it really covers the scope of what we're going to look at today. He says, "In our members there is a slumbering inclination towards desire, which is both sudden and fierce. With irresistible power, desire seizes mastery over the flesh. All at once a secret smoldering fire is kindled. The flesh burns and is in flames. It makes no difference whether it is sexual desire, or ambition, or vanity, or desire for revenge, love, or fame and power, or greed for money, or finally that strange desire for the beauty of the world of nature. Joy in God is in the course of being extinguished in us, and we seek all our joy in the creature. At this moment, God is quite unreal to us. He loses all reality, and only desire for the creature is real. It is the only reality is the devil. Satan does not here fill us with a hatred of God, but with a forgetfulness of God. The lust thus aroused envelops the mind, the will of man in deepest darkness. The powers of clear discrimination and of decision are taken from us, and it is here that everything within me rises up against the word of God." Temptation is many different things. It's not something we can nail down as A, B, C. It's not this is temptation, this isn't. It's a combination of our desires mixed with that external bait, so to speak, that item that's out there. But it can be broken down into three categories of sorts. The first would be material temptations. Material temptations would be those things that are just that, things, money, greed, the new cars, like I talked about earlier for me, the new house, new furniture, the items that we lust after, we see the commercials for, and we pine for, and we did just think that if we had that one thing, it would be just so perfect and make our lives so much better. Again, in college, this was when I first started college, I discovered what credit cards were. Amazing little piece of plastic that you can buy the whole world with. And they just hand them out pretty much left and right when you join college. You show up and they've got booths everywhere on public universities saying, here, sign up for a credit card. And so I jumped in. I thought this was just, I bought into this, it's going to help your credit score if you need to have some credit. And I ended up getting 3 different credit cards that I maxed out over the course of the next probably 5 years. I maxed them out 3 different times, all 3 of them, and paid them off 3 different times. I was just obsessed with things and clothes and making sure I had that right image. And it was that same time period when I bought that car. I was just obsessed with things and making sure that I had the right appearance for people. I was very, very tempted by material items. And really, this is what fuels America. America is very driven by materialism and the temptation of things. And this is something that definitely can trip us up. Another aspect of temptation is personal temptations. And this is a temptation for power, temptation for prestige, the titles, I'm a doctor, I'm a CEO, I'm a professor. This drive to be these certain things just so we can have that power and that recognition. Again, which shouldn't be surprising from what I've said already. When I first started college, I wanted to be a pre-med student because everybody told me that's where the money was, is be a doctor and you're going to have lots of money. And I knew doctors in our community and was very impressed with kind of the prestige and honor that was given to them, and I felt like that was really going to make me something if I was a doctor. Fortunately, after the first semester, I realized that with the grades I was getting, there was no way I was going to be a pre-med student, and doctor was kind of out of the question. So I just moved on into business school. But we buy into that, you deserve that, for what it will mean to you. You deserve it because it's all about you, and we buy into that temptation. The last temptation category that we'll spend a little more time on, essential temptations. And this is the lust for another person or another person's body and other people. And this is very rampant and pervasive in our society as well. Pornography is just right at the click of a mouse. It's everywhere. Our marketing, all of our commercials and everything that we see around us just screams this sensual temptation. And marketers know sex sells. We've all heard that, and it's in everything that we see. But there's 2 men in the Bible that I want to look at their stories that dealt with this sensual temptation. The first is David and Bathsheba's story that many of you are aware of. I'm just going to read it quickly here in 2 Samuel 11. If you have your Bibles, you're welcome to turn there, and we're just going to read verses 1 through 5. Then it happened in the spring, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servant with him and all of Israel. And they destroyed the sons of Ammon and sieged Rabbah. But David stayed in Jerusalem. Now when evening came, David arose from his bed and walked around on the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful in appearance. So David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, "Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" David sent messengers and took her. And when she came to him, he lay with her, and when she had purified herself from the uncleanness and returned to her house, the woman conceived, and she sent and told David that she was pregnant. The second person we're just going to contrast some similarities and differences that I'd like to look at is Joseph, over in Genesis chapter 39, and starting in verse 6. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. It came about after these events that his master's wife looked with desire on Joseph. And she said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, with me here my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. But he has put all that he owns in my charge. There is no one greater in the house than I, and he has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great evil and sin against God?" As she spoke to Joseph day after day, he did not listen to her to lie beside her or even be with her. Now it happened one day that he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the household was there inside. She caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." And he left the garment in her hand and fled and went outside. 2 different men. Both of these men were very favored of God. God had his hand in their lives. Multiple times throughout the Genesis account of Joseph, from chapters 37 through 50, it talks about how the Lord was with him.